and happy Wednesday to the world out there, or wherever you are. I know for Ross it's not Wednesday, but happy Wednesday.
Good day, good people.
It is the good.
You're living in the past.
Yeah, for those of you that don't know, Ross is a time traveler. He has already seen what Thursday is in store, so get your lotto tickets. Ross will get you some numbers.
I just gotta say, stay off the train. That's all the hints I'm giving you about the future.
Wow,
Scary.
That's ominous. It's a little bit darker than I expected, but fortunately.
I guess I'll be taking an Uber.
Yeah. I can't change the future.
But gentlemen, welcome. We got some exciting stuff to talk about. The Seahawks are, doing well in spite of what everyone is thinking. I'm not really sure what to categorize it as. It's kind of weird, right? They play a 2-5 team. We talked about Bruce Arians. We talked about the Buccaneers. We talked about their quarterback. We talked about all this stuff. And I don't know if any of us saw the game that we actually ended up seeing. I think I predicted a little bit lower of a score. Both of you guys had some high-scoring games, but not a 40-34 game, right? I think all of us had the Bucs under 20, which was probably a big mistake in hindsight. But we only had the Seahawks at like low 30s, not 40s.
Yeah, well, I mean, predicting in the 40s is usually saved for those specific games where a team's going to score 40 points. And that just doesn't happen that often.
Yeah, you save it for when you're playing Miami and it's week 17 and you need to blow them out to move up in the Pac-12 ratings or something.
Right, exactly. You're waiting for the college football playoff polls to come out, and you just gotta pound people to really impress them, because it's not good enough to beat them. You got to beat them like 7 touchdowns.
We're not going to get to the playoffs unless we beat them by 48 or something. So
right,
playoffs. That's the only time you can really predict over 40.
Because if they're going to give us a spread of only plus 23, well, we got to really embarrass those bookies, because that's unheard of. But it was a pretty crazy game.
I'll say.
Essentially, Russell Wilson has 3 game-winning drives in that game, right?
Yeah.
He has one to DK Metcalf on a beautiful 53-yard touchdown where DK looks like he's running in slow motion, but it's just breaking away from the dude. Then the Bucs tie, and Bruce Arians surprisingly did not go for 2. He wanted to try and take that game into overtime, even though Russell Wilson had 56 seconds left on the clock. And
did you think he would go for 2?
I fully expected him to go for 2, and I expected them to make it.
I did not get to watch the game in full liveness, so I was kind of surprised to hear after the fact that it wasn't a 2-point attempt, that they just went to tie, knowing who Bruce Arians is. So I was really surprised that he didn't go for 2 in that moment.
Especially if you're a 2-win team, especially. I mean, dude, why not?
I mean,
but whatever.
If you were to look at just that play in itself, going for 2, 45% chance? Would you say, just on average? I know that's not perfect, but any team has maybe a 40 plus 50% chance to score 2 points, get 2 yards on a given play.
True, but not on any given play.
On that particular play, obviously it's a little bit tougher, but I would say that scoring a 2-pointer, if teams went for it every single time, I would expect them to make just under half.
I think I saw something it's 55% actually.
Well, if it's a 55% chance that you're going to score 2 points on a 2 yard that you need,
go for it.
You should go for it, because it's Russell Wilson. You're giving him 50 plus seconds. He's got timeouts, and it's just a field goal to win it. And lo and behold,
that was why I wasn't really worried about it, because when they scored, it just felt like something Seattle usually does. You score, but you've left them too much time. So
yeah.
I was like, oh, okay, well, 55 seconds, I'll take that.
Yeah,
sure.
And then what does Russell Wilson do? He orchestrates a drive, marches them down the field 45 yards, gets them in really good field goal range, and our kicker's got the yips.
Really, really good field goal range is a very relative thing.
Yeah.
It was definitely a makeable field goal. It wasn't oh man, this is really going to put some pressure on our kicker. It's
It was 40 yards. It was.
Yeah, you should have
That's
made the
about
damn
like.
field goal.
I mean, that's at 50 yards and longer is why I guess start giving kickers a pass. At
Right.
40 yards. I mean, you guys know me. I'm the one who's always giving the kickers. Last year, I wouldn't let you guys attack the kicker because, like, you know what? That's what the Seahawks signed up for. If you don't want to spend money on the kicker, then you know that's what you get, and you
Right.
can't complain about that later. This year, yeah, and not so much. You know what? They went and got like the best kicker from last year, spent the money on it, but not getting what they paid for. But it's not really their fault. Some people are saying, well, he's just like returning to the mean or whatever, like going back to what he normally is. But you can't know that. Like usually a kicker, like once he gets to that level, he's going to be at that level. But
Right. And the thing that's crazy is like he has had more misses in this year than he has had in his previous 2 years combined, and we're not even through the entire season.
Nope, we're not. Nope, no, not.
And I wonder how much of an impact it is with the fact that Seattle plays in an outdoor stadium on the water where there is sometimes like crazy things that happen, because we've all seen the crazy games where like people miss field goals. I mean, it happened earlier in the Rams game where their kicker just pushed it just barely wide right. So it's not like Seattle is the field itself, like the stadium that we play in is like the most friendly of kicking stadiums. So it's not like totally unheard of for
Are you
people to miss.
claiming there's like an inversion? Are you claiming like there's some sort of inversion level layer, 300 feet or 100 feet?
I don't know, man, because like what was it?
Or the seagulls get in the way, or
Well, the thing is like I think all of us have watched enough football to kind of realize, okay, yeah, crazy things happen, but kicking in Seattle, crazy things always seem to happen, and it's not necessarily like just against the Seahawks. Sometimes it's against the opposing kickers too.
right? And we've seen a lot of that, especially going to the north. But I don't think it's actually anything real, unless there's I don't know. I mean, it's true. There have been a lot of weird happenings in the north end, especially. But I don't know, man. I don't think it's weather. I think it's just random
Yeah.
stuff gets in heads or something. I don't know. It's not good though. It's not good.
And then
There's an inversion there that somebody needs to go take care of it.
So then Jason Myers misses a field goal. We go into overtime. Bucks players are like running off the field. They're so excited. But lo and behold, we got a secret weapon in Geno Smith, who wins us the coin toss just by his presence alone. I don't even think he called it. He was just there for his 99 coin flip rating. And Seahawks get the ball. They give it to Russell Wilson, and Russell Wilson just drives down the field again. Like, oh, third time in one game? I got this.
No problem.
And they have to score a touchdown because they don't want to give the Bucks a chance, so they're going to just drive down the field and score a touchdown. And I know Chris Carson touched the ball a couple times, but that drive was pretty much all Russell Wilson.
It was.
Yeah, it was. It was all him.
I mean, mostly. It was weird. By the end of the game, you could just feel like Russell Wilson could do whatever Russell Wilson wanted.
There was definitely like an eerie calm to him, where like I wasn't watching the game live. I listened to overtime through the radio, so I'm like keenly aware of what's happening through the radio. So for those of you that don't get a chance, Steve Rabel is awesome. He's a great play-by-play guy, but there's just like a definite calmness. Like I never felt like even through the radio that the team was like pressing and like really like tight. They were just like, no, we're just gonna go down the field. And then I didn't get to see it, but when I saw the replay of that back shoulder play to DK Metcalf, who had a monster game, I just don't know what you could feel if you were a Bucks fan or the Bucks team at the time. It's like, man, like what do we need to do to stop this guy? Let alone these two receivers he's throwing to.
There's nothing you can do to stop.
There was nothing. What could they have done? Nothing.
When Metcalf's gonna play like that, like when you can grab his face mask, rip it 90 degrees to the left, but he still catches the ball, and Russell Wilson's just gonna place the ball anywhere on the field like he's just doing point and click, there's not a lot you can do, really.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I think Russ did have one bad throw where he missed Russ in the first, or he missed Tyler Lockett on a cross body field throw. He was like kind of to the right side, and Tyler Lockett's running a crossing play to the left, and he just kind of overthrows him. That's like the one play that I actually saw that I remember. Like, oh, kind of missed a throw there.
Yeah, it was about the one that he really missed.
And then, but you know, credit that offense. Credit Russell Wilson. Credit Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf and Tyler. What's his name? What's the tight end? Number 48. Hollister. Yeah, I mean, he had an impressive game for a guy that's never caught a touchdown in his life.
Right? What's his name? What's his name? You didn't go out and pick him up immediately in your fantasy?
You know me. I'm a Luke Wilson fan.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Sammy's all about the white tight end.
So's Russ.
Yeah, apparently. He does not discriminate.
I was going to say, when Russell retires, I'm going to ask him, hey, what was that one shifty white tight end that you used to throw touchdowns to? He's going to be like, which one?
Well, the Seahawks continue to put up nerve-wracking win after nerve-wracking win, much to the confusion, frustration, and satisfaction of all the Seahawks fans out there. The show continues on Primetime as the Seahawks travel to Santa Clara to face the last undefeated team. But we got to talk about Russell's amazing week as two-time NFC Player of the Week and his amazing duo of Lockett and Metcalf. Is that going to be enough to take on old frenemy Richard Sherman? This is the Hawkscast podcast brought to you by the Hawkscast Foreign. I am Sam. With me, as always, is Zeb and Ross. And the game that the Seattle Seahawks played, and we're going to talk about the defense in our first topic. But before we get to that, I want to talk a little bit, just one final few thoughts about the game plan that came into play. I think one thing that people are starting to become more and more open to is Schottenheimer, Pete Carroll, and Russell Wilson. They're doing a really great job playing a really, really effective offense. Do you think that enough people are willing to give those three people credit?
I think they almost de facto have to. Like, you can only be so high on Lockett and so high on Metcalf and so high on Wilson, but then like not be able. Most people's hypocrisy has a. I don't think people like to give, like, especially just by instinct, the Seattle Seahawks offensive coordinator any credit. But at a certain point, where you're like there's legitimately 3-4 like position players who could be like a Pro Bowl running this year, and you have to start saying, well, okay, maybe the offensive coaching is awesome as well now too, right? You have to, right? I think there's a lot of stupidity out there, but eventually, like I said, hypocrisy has its limits, I think.
The light will shine eventually, is what you're saying.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen a lot of it already. I've already seen like the worms start to turn on, trying to take the temperature of Seahawks Twitter, which is never fun. But I think I've seen already a kind of a shift. It's still gaining momentum, but I think there's starting to be some recognition there. I think.
You think? Zeb,
I think.
If you were to look at the coaching staff, is there one coach that you think deserves a little bit more accolades or a little bit more attention than maybe what Seahawks Twitter or even we have talked about so far this year?
Don't say Ken Norton.
I mean, I don't think it's just a coincidence that the offense is playing as good as it is under a different coordinator than we had a couple of years ago. So, I mean, obviously it seems as though Shoddy must have indeed been a step up from Mr. Bevel. I don't know. A lot of people like to give all the credit to the players, and some people like to give all the credit to the coaches. Obviously, it's a combination. And the game plan going into it. What's that?
Some people like to give all credit to God.
That's true. And for all we know, maybe he's making very specific moves with people on the field that we can't see it, so we don't know.
God's in Vegas putting 20 down on Seahawks. Okay, now I got to help Russell.
I think Schottenheimer is doing a very good job, not only with the design of the offense but calling plays as well. I think it seems as though Russell and Shoddy are a very fine duo.
All right. Well, we've given enough love to the offense because that was the one that really shined. but we got to talk about topic number one here. And Ross, I got to know, why is this defense so bad?
Yeah. I that in my own opinion, quite a few of the players are not as good as it was hoped they would be, or was assumed they would be, or as maybe in some cases they have been in the past. And so you're playing with a lot of apparent talent, but you're not playing, in my opinion, at this point, with a lot of real talent, not the type you need. There's a lot of like substitute level players. There's not a lot of people I think who are absolutely trash, but to have an effective, good defense, you have to have a certain number of difference makers. And I'm not sure right now we have more. I think we have one. But I don't think, for example, God, I'm going to get killed for this. I don't think Bobby Wagner is Bobby Wagner that we're used to right now. I don't think he's an impactful player. I think he's a good player. I think he's a solid middle linebacker, but he's not stepping up to make difference-making plays in a game anymore. I don't think KJ Wright is anymore. I think Kendricks is hard to say. He's got a pick that wasn't a good pick, and he's leading our team in sacks with he's missed 15 tackles in 9 games. Some of them important. Some stats aren't being written down as missed tackles because it's not clear who missed it.
Pretty sure he missed 13 tackles in that same game on Kamara alone, so give him a little
bit. So, and then like I keep hearing that Shaquille Griffin is playing great, and I don't think he is actually. Like, if everybody's playing great, if everybody's playing good, then the results would have. If Trey Flowers is playing fine and Griffin's playing good, and Marquise Blair came in and had a good game, and Bradley McDougall's good, then our secondary is good. Does anybody think our secondary is good? No. So some of those people who we keep saying are good are not actually right. There's I don't really find any other way around, unless you're saying like the coaching's so bad. But the scheme is so relatively simple that it's not the scheme. I mean, like if you're good and you're covering your guy, if you're playing cover 3 and you've got basically deep third left, and basically you man-to-man the guy for 2/3 of that, then you drop in your zone. If you're a good player, you're a good player. I mean, you can. There's nothing, If you got the guy, you got the guy. But you don't got the guy. You don't got the guy on the left. You don't got the guy on the right. You don't got the guy in the middle. Nobody's like, okay, and then we get Ansah. Let's go through the rest of it real quick, and then that's the rest of my rant. We'll go through the rest. The defensive line, I think Clowney's actually a difference maker still. But the thing is, like, he's being double teamed almost every play, and they don't even really have to. I don't think offenses think they have to, but they've got 5 linemen and we've got 4 rushers, and nobody else even warrants a full guy, so you can double him. So, and then he's never been the guy to beat the tackle purely technique or whatever to get the sack. His sacks in the past. We talked about this when we traded. His sacks in the past come off of like a really athletic play. They're not just like beating the tackle.
Right.
And so he's not getting that opportunity because you can't do so many athletic things when 2 people beat up on you every play. And then like you got Jaron Reed and like people are like, oh well, he missed all of this and that, but he's been back for 3 games, guys. He's been back for 3, and he was not on the stat sheet. And Ziggy, I don't know if he had already lost it, or then he lost it with his first injury or the shoulder injury. And the surgery recovery is worse than we thought, but. Man, am I ready to try out some BKK, some Bart. You know what? Put Collier back. Like there's got to be on the field. Literally, Ansah didn't show up on the stat sheet. I think he had like an assist, 1 assist. I'm sure Collier can get an assist if he plays a whole game at defensive end. So you know what? I think we've misevaluated our players, including us. I don't think some of our superstars are actually stars anymore, and it sucks because we just gave Wagner that big giant new contract. I can't say I called that one though. I called the one with most of the other players in the past, and I didn't want to give it to you guys. I did not call the Bobby Wagner. so I can't take credit for that at all. But
Yeah.
I don't think Bobby's.
Zeb, what about you? Like, what do you think is the issue with this defense? Like, why is it so bad? I mean, and we're talking about bad about it's obviously the biggest weakness of the team that we're seeing on a 7-2 team, right? Why is what's its problem?
I don't know.
Is it
Moving
team? Is it,
Here's what
people,
what.
go ahead.
So there were something ranked like 28th in passing defense, something like 13th in rushing defense. Clearly, the passing defense is what seems to be the biggest part of the problem. Except for if you look at it, so Russell Wilson's thrown 22 touchdown passes. The defense has only allowed half of that.
Right.
11 passing touchdowns against us. 7 interceptions to Russell's 1. Right? Rushing yardage wise, they're doing fairly well, middle of the road, but they've allowed 12 rushing touchdowns. So, and you know, yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's just weird because we're not used to seeing a defense that gives up this many points and looks at times as though they can't stop anybody. We're not used to that up here.
They're so passive.
And I have to. I mean, this is to me. I've always talked about this kind of being the easy cop out, especially for a fan who doesn't really know X's and O's and stuff like that. But I have to feel like Ken Norton. I mean, I don't see any way that he's not partially responsible for how things are going. And I think if that is indeed the case, that's not going to change this season because we know how Pete Carroll is, and he's not going to make a change like that mid-season. So, if this is somehow a problem with Ken Norton and his game planning, like it's not a motivation factor. We know that guy can motivate men, but if it's more technical than that, I don't know that it's going to matter so much which players are out there. If it's actually comes down to Ken Norton not, you know, defensive play calling or whatever, is clear. Seems like it's not up to par to me. I mean, you could go around like you're saying, Ross, and look at every individual guy, but it seems like these guys are all capable. So I don't know. It seems like you have to kind of go to the top on this one.
I think both of you guys bring an element of kind of what the issue is, but it's also at the same point, even if you acknowledge that it's an issue, you don't necessarily have a lot that you can change. If it's a personal issue where like, hey, we don't have superstars like from left to right of the field, and we don't have this amazing ingenious philosophy and plan that's going to just revolutionize and capture everyone off guard. Like, you don't have that anymore. Like, this is probably the most basic of basic defensive philosophies that Pete Carroll has, and he has Ken Norton there to fulfill his exact defensive philosophy and scheme. I do think that the issue that we're seeing a lot is it comes down to a lot of the ways that teams are playing the Seahawks is they are willing to take whatever the Seahawks are willing to give up. And in this game, there was not huge like bombs down the field that Seahawks are getting beat deep. Like we haven't seen, at least that I can really recall, we're not seeing a Tedrick Thompson giving up a 50-yard bomb down the field. We're seeing them just kind of matriculate, take those yards that they can get. And that really is neutralizing the defense, especially our pass rush, which is really, really bad from all outlook because they're not generating consistent pressure, and teams are taking advantage of our over-aggressiveness to try and get to the quarterback with quick screens, quick slants, things that you can get like small yardage, but, add in missed tackles, those turn into bigger plays. But we're not seeing like huge monster plays. Like DK Metcalf is not scoring 53-yard plays against our defense for whatever reason. I mean, that's just a theoretical, but we're not seeing that a lot even in these recent games. And I think that's what's kind of confusing to a degree.
I mean, like in the past, that's always been true. I mean, they have had this. I mean, go back to that Super Bowl. That's where it kind of first time really, really was really obvious, I think, to everybody because it's the Super Bowl, the biggest stage, and everything's in their hyper focus. Where Peyton Manning, even though he got destroyed 43-8, set a Super Bowl record for completions.
Right. What a meaningless record to have. But yeah,
And
exactly.
and his main wide receiver, what's his name? I forgot
Wes
his name at the
Walker.
moment. No, the other guy, the bigger guy.
Demarius.
Yeah, Demarius.
Demarius Thomas, he set a Super Bowl record, I think, maybe for catches and yards. But no, like I said, it was completely meaningless. But see, like in the past, that was cool because while they did it, you also knew like there's that Pete Carroll's thing. Like if you do that, if you need to run 40 plays for 10 yards or shorter, we think we're gonna make a significant play or you're gonna make a significant error. We're gonna force an error on 2 or 3 of those. So we're gonna get an interception or we're gonna force more fumbles or whatever. And now we don't.
Right,
We
and
don't.
I think that's interesting because what we're seeing is we're getting fumbles, we're getting strips like all over the field in various ways, but we're still lacking in interceptions. Every single interception that the Seahawks have had so far this year are tip plays, or it's like a linebacker or a defensive end just snagging a ball from out of the blue. We're not
or
getting
T2 just getting two. I mean, like that was his one good thing, right?
right, but even
T2
but but that
incredible.
play that's still off of a tip. That's a ball that's
Yeah.
popped up in the air, and he makes an acrobatic, amazing, defensive play to secure that interception. But we're not seeing quarterbacks throw into coverage and just like, oh well, he just completely did not see the linebacker there. He completely did not see the corner jumping his route.
Yeah,
We're not
the,
seeing
the,
those kind of
the,
plays, and
the
that's
coverage isn't fooling anybody. Like they don't have the speed to bait people anymore. And that's what I'm saying. Like so everybody's like kind of lost a bit of their edge. And Shaquille Griffin, everybody says he's doing really good this year.
no
He's
no.
doing really good this
So hold on. I
He's
do want
not.
to I do want to defend because I missed the second half of the game, but I watched the replay of that game, and on two of the big plays that Shaquille got beat on, one was an illegal pick play. Like basically, the dude just ran straight in front of him, and it was like within 5 yards, and there's really nothing that Shaquille could do. And I think maybe that's defensive scheme because Shaquille was moving like all over the field. He was not staying on just the left corner. He was moving and he was following because they have two good receivers. So
And they were lining up, yeah, they're on the same side a lot.
yeah, so I do want to. I'm not saying that he doesn't deserve criticism because he didn't have a great game, but he had a couple plays where he played well. Like on, I think it was third down. It was third and 5, and he has a great bat away at the ball on what would have been a first down. Tampa ends up, they converted on a run by Jameis Winston, but he played that play well. So I'm not saying
I'm
that
not
you're
saying it's the
completely
worst.
wrong,
I'm
but
not
I'm
saying
just
it's the
saying
worst.
what I would say is through 9 games, Shaquille Griffin has probably been the best corner by far, but he's also been probably the most consistent, defensive player through all those 9 games. I would say.
I mean, I'm not saying he's the worst ever, but and when you say he's the best cornerback, well, we barely play outside of our base, so it's the best of two cornerbacks.
Tis
And
true.
like,
Tis true. You're not wrong.
and he's now at 23 straight games without an interception. 23. Like it's just never come up. It's just never. Oh, come on, like that. I mean, I know like you can go away from it, but like people say, well, he's he doesn't have it because he's not targeted, but he is.
Yeah.
And the 23 games, not a single interception.
Well,
And
I don't disagree with you, and I know it's something that I think
he
we
has
as
made some plays, man.
we as fans are going to have a hard time, and until we see it, it's going to be something that's just going to continue to gnaw. Kind of like, man, are they ever going to win a blowout? Or are they always going to just play these nail biters? But I do want to move ahead, so I want to move
Moving
on to
on.
topic number 2. And Zeb, you're a man of the people. I need to know: does the league and does the media recognize how good Russell Wilson is playing this year?
I think so. I mean, everything that I've seen, I granted I'm on YouTube a lot, just checking out clips from the shows. I don't watch the full shows. But I've seen the guys on NFL Network, the guys on ESPN, heard the guys on the radio. Pretty much everybody's acknowledging that he's playing absolutely lights out. And I don't think there's a player in the league that would try to downplay how good he's playing unless they're just trying to do some mind games, some gamesmanship. I think everybody knows that he's having the best season of his career and is legitimately one of the best quarterbacks in the league. I don't think there's any question. Where he does seem to still get slighted a little bit is that I've heard people this MVP discussion, which I'm conflicted on whether I even enjoy talking about it because it's one of those things I just like to see happen and not have to worry about it right now. But I've heard people say things like they'd still give it to Mahomes over him right now, and I'm like, really? Like right now? I could see at the end of the year when everything shakes out if Mahomes has played however we know that he's capable of, maybe. But as of right now, I don't think there's any question that Russell Wilson is the best quarterback in the league at this moment. So I don't perceive any kind of slight there, league wide and in the media.
Ross, what about you? You're living in the future. You see all the headlines before we do. What does the future hold in store for the league and the way they view Russell Wilson in the media?
I think for the casual fan, people are going to be happy. I think Russell Wilson has turned the corner. Enough people are gone that enough people are getting old. The Russell Wilson's finally for the next 3 or 4 years going to be like the guy they talk about, or one of the 3 guys they talk about. It's great because like even just a couple of years ago, he was not. He deserved it, but we needed for the Peyton Mannings to go away, and you needed Tom Brady to finally start fading a little bit, and at least statistically. So now the timing's right. He's done it for long enough. He's shed some of his awkwardness socially, and and the numbers are picked up, and everything's kind of not fair because it's funny. You need the defense to suck for him to shine. It's just how I guess it's human nature, right? And the Seahawks seem to acknowledge it. We're bringing in Josh Gordon, so it's even going to get better now. I think actually, Pete Carroll, it's a sign that Pete Carroll has recently said, you know what, this year's defense isn't going to come around. It's not going to get where we want it to be, and so we're going to have to score 40 points a game occasionally, and so that bodes well for Russell Wilson's numbers. So if your fantasy football trade deadline thing hasn't expired yet, go get him. It's going to be an MVP year.
Yeah, I think what's interesting about the conversation of how he's viewed in the league versus kind of the media, I think everyone in the league really respects and really knows how good Russell Wilson is because he does things. He does things really well in the pocket, out of the pocket, and things that he does on the legs. Like the play that I thought was really, really impressive is it was either in the fourth quarter or it was in overtime, and basically he's running right and he's running toward the line of scrimmage. Chris Carson is like just a little bit ahead of him, and he just kind of floats it over Chris Carson. Chris Carson makes like a one-handed grab and turns it into a great first down, and it's just like this really simple play, but Russ just makes it look so easy. And I kind of feel as like there's a certain way that Russ goes about his business that he's just not going to get the attention that maybe he deserves to a degree because he's not blowing teams away. He's putting up points because his defense isn't good enough, or in a lower scoring game, they don't need him to go, balls to the wall, so he doesn't need to go for 300 yards every game. He's very comfortable playing like a game where he goes for like 200 yards and 1 touchdown and hands the ball off to Chris Carson a ton of plays. He's very much the kind of guy that will do what is needed to win the game, and he will also like make himself less visible because it's not required. Like the Atlanta game where he basically only had 1 offensive score in the entire second half because they only touched the ball like 4 or 5 times, but the one time that they needed to actually move the ball, that's the time that he really shined. But in the second half, it was basically nothing. So I think that he is having an amazing year. I think the coaching staff is doing a good thing. And Ross, to your point, I think it's really true about what they're doing with Josh Gordon. We'll talk about him in a second. it will be interesting to see this carry through because they have a much harder schedule of the next 7 games. 6 of the teams they're going to play at this time have 5 wins or more. So that means, half of the teams are more than a 500 record team. The easiest quote-unquote team that they're going to play is going to be the Cardinals. And we know that, rivalry games are never going to be easy. But I think what we're seeing is Russell Wilson is maintaining that progression and maintaining those MVP-like levels. And I'm excited to see him watch to the end of the year, and hopefully he'll come home with some hardware.
Hopefully.
The only thing I want to sort of add on is, although I think he's got a really good chance at it, I still don't think, and this is why we talked about kind of the casual fan, I still don't think it's actually being acknowledged just how special the year is. And we're not going to go into all the statistics and point it, but he's not just having a good year. He's having sort of a historic year quietly.
Oh,
he's doing all kinds of things. He's doing all kinds of things which are not normally done, or I don't know. If you look at the quality of the throw, you look at all kinds of. You look at the ratios of things. 22-1 is the easy one. It's not just a good year. It's not just an MVP year. It's a year that, again, once he's gone way down the road, we're gonna really look back and go, that was the amazing time ever. Because I don't think you can really, unless you really just spend some time looking deeply at the numbers. I don't think most of us can understand how special the year is for him.
Yeah, I think it's in the moment. There's so many things that are drawing our attention maybe away from how good he is. It's hard to really bask in what his current year is because he's leading the league in so many categories, and it's just something that we're really unaccustomed to seeing. Even yardage wise, Russell Wilson is top 5 in yards, which is normally something where we see him at the bottom, but he's also got he's not leading the league in attempts to get those yardage or those touchdowns, which is another really, really impressive stat.
I think where there may be some hesitation may be in the fact that how good he actually is playing. I don't think people believe it can last, especially when they look at our upcoming schedule. I think people kind of expect him to come back down to earth at some point. So that could be where there's some hesitation to kind of crown him right now. But at the other side of that, I also think that there's people who they just can't wait to give it to Rodgers or Mahomes instead. You know what I mean? Those are the guys they want to give it to. I think they acknowledge that right now they'd have to give it to Russell, but it's not going to take much for them for him to be overshadowed by one of those guys.
Hey man, Rodgers had 75 yards going into the last 5 minutes of that game that they lost. He had a 75-yard drive and a touchdown to finish out that game. Russell Wilson has not anything close to a downfall of a game like that. So it'll be really interesting to see once all the cards are out, how they'll really kind of look at it. But that was a bad loss for the Packers and Aaron Rodgers. So I'm very happy for that.
You don't got to tell me.
All right, let's move on to topic number 3. And Ross, Seahawks Twitter wants to know, have you heard of this Josh Gordon guy? Have you heard that the Seahawks have signed some dude named Josh Gordon?
I don't read the internet. Josh Gordon. 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I would have been keep that creep away from my team. But I've changed. I've softened. I've learned. I've wisened up. Maybe I've even gone a little bit soft and a little bit more forgiving and a little bit more. Sometimes people need second chances. Sometimes people need third chances. And if we can afford to give those people that, why don't we? It's not like he was out there getting arrested for an attempted murder or conspiracy or, he wasn't doing that kind of stuff. He was the king of self-destructive behavior. Sounds like some of it may be creeping up again, but Pete Carroll, people think it's all he cares about winning is just so he's willing to sign these character issue people. But I don't think he looks at it like that. I think he looks at it more like I just said, people deserve second chances. You can make, especially in today's society, we are so quick to judge, and we're so quick to be outraged, and we're so quick to call for people's jobs, and we're so quick to not let people make mistakes and be human. And I think Pete Carroll nearing his 70s looks at life a little different and says, that's a young man who's made some mistakes and he's talented and he deserves another chance. And we're going to give it to him because it's a good fit for him, because there's some positive people around him. I think you have a hard time leaving a locker room where you just spent time with Russell Wilson and go off and go shoot up. That sounds naive, mate. Oh, really? I just think you'd have a hard time like trying to hide that from your quarterback when that's your quarterback. I think that stuff matters. I think the people around you matter. Not to say that that it wasn't supportive in New England, but New England it's not so, from what I could tell, so kumbaya, as Richard Sherman pointed out. Yeah. And I think some people need the kumbaya, and I think it benefits some people to have the kumbaya. And I'm looking forward to see how it works out. And like I said, 3 or 4 years ago, before I started opening my eyes to different ways of looking at things, I would have been like, man, I'm almost embarrassed we signed him. But today, if it doesn't even work out as a team, but it works out that he stays clean and he stays on pack, stays on the right path, and ends up being a sort of a mediocre addition to us, I'll still be happy for that dude. That's where I'm at.
Zeb, are you going to pick up Josh Gordon for your fantasy team? That's the more important question.
What fantasy team?
That's some faith.
I am cautiously optimistic about the whole Josh Gordon thing. He, at first it kind of gave me that Braylon Edwards, Brandon Marshall feel. Like, this is just one of those guys, we're going to pick him up. He might last for a few games. We're going to end up cutting him. But I do believe that he still has the talent and enough gas left in the tank to maybe be a bit of a difference maker. I was talking to a younger Seahawks fan, not crazy young, but younger than me, who was really fired up about it. And I told him a little story about the 1999 Seattle Seahawks, who were 8-2, just as a certain Joey Galloway was coming back, and that team ended up 9-7 and barely made the playoffs.
Oh, that's a right.
So
I have a lot of nightmare stories about that year myself.
I can't help but feel like things are clicking so well on offense right now that, I don't know, maybe throwing something weird and extra into the mix like this may not be such a great thing. I don't know. I don't want to assume anything negative or expect anything negative, but it just, I couldn't help but think about that. So
I totally get that, but at the same time, I also wonder how long away with having essentially 2 wide receivers.
Yeah,
I mean,
totally.
Malik Turner actually is. This is going to sound weird, but he's actually done a little bit more than I expected, because I expected absolutely nothing from him. And Jerome Brown, I mean, we found out that all the talk in the offseason was hype, so we kind of knew that dude, right?
Yeah. I think what's interesting about this whole idea of signing Josh Gordon is kind of to your point that you said earlier, Ross, is this is a move that Pico says, you know what? I can't trust the defense to win me a game, so I need to give everything I can to Russell Wilson. The Seahawks also made a move by releasing like the 7th wide receiver in the room to bring on Phil Haynes,
well, apparently he'd have to be the 8th, right? Because he's the one they let go. 8th wide receiver in the room.
So it's kind of interesting to see that we've made a lot of these moves, especially in the season, and especially that we would assign a guy that has a history of problems, who has like this checkered football history, also with so many off-field issues. But if there's a chance for him to succeed, I would think someone like that, who maybe needs to be surrounded by a really strong support system, I could see him really doing well in Seattle. I don't know if that means that he's going to all of a sudden turn into like 1,000-yard, double-digit touchdown projection kind of guy, but he could be of value. And I think what we're seeing is Tyler Lockett has a very, very specific skill set when it comes to his ability. DK Metcalf, we're seeing more and more of that consistency and kind of that what makes him unique and why he's such a physical specimen, and the fact that his 3-cone drill is not that be-all, end-all. But like you guys are saying, if there's no one beyond that, if there's no threat, maybe those guys are double covered, and then you're just hoping that someone can get free. The offensive line's played well in the past, but I don't know if that's enough to make it secured. So if you add a Josh Gordon, where someone has to really think about, well, what am I going to do? Do I have to respect him and cover him, or do I let him run free? Is that a change? Is that a difference that Seattle's offense could just like see them really, really explode and Russell Wilson having a bigger year? I'm willing to chance it. I'm willing to invest in that. And, by all accounts, he's past his physical. I don't know if he's going to play on Monday night, but that extra day of practice, maybe we do see him play a little bit. And if he does, I would love to see him match up against Richard Sherman and see what he could do. I'm not expecting a lot, but it'll be fun to see.
Yeah, I mean, even as just sort of a decoy, he could help us out a lot. So,
well, that's the thing. That's a huge point. I think you can't just ignore him. If you line him up on the right side in this upcoming game, they can't let Sherman, even if they wanted, they couldn't let Sherman go somewhere else. They have to keep Sherman out there if Gordon's there, right?
And even
it's a really good tool,
right? And it's one of those things that the reason why he gets any level of attention is because in the games that he's played really well. Like someone threw a stat on Twitter, and it was comparing his production to Jaron Brown's production. And the difference is that Jaron Brown's played 3 times as many games as Josh Gordon, but Josh Gordon is performing at a slightly better level based upon just yards and almost touchdown production level, because in the 28 games that he has played, he's played really well. So it's that idea that he's this talent that if Pete can bring it out of him and playing with Russell Wilson can bring it out of him, I'll be really amazed and I'll be really impressed if they can do that, because I don't think any of us expected to see DK perform as well as he had this year. I thought that game he played against Tampa was his best game to date, but it was like that guy looked like a pro. He looked like a guy who had been playing with Russell Wilson for years and years, and like, the only thing we haven't really seen from DK is that crazy, like, plays broken down and Russ is scrambling for 12 seconds and finds DK like alone and he just like takes it to the track. That's like the play we haven't seen from him yet. That's like a Tyler Lockett special,
Yeah.
But yeah. All right, so
that deep cross he had was close, right? But yeah, I know what you.
Yeah. Final thoughts on Josh Gordon?
Fuck it, let's do it.
It's kind of a weird name for like that kind of receiver, isn't it? Josh Gordon. Sounds much more like a quarterback.
Flash Gordon.
Yeah. that is his name. Shout out to my friend Eric with a K. He actually has a great Twitter handle. I believe it is actually like Flash Gordon. So I told him he should reach out to Josh Gordon and see if he wants to buy his Twitter handle.
That's the thing. You think at some point Josh Gordon would have picked up a really cool nickname if Josh is his name, right? Something more dynamic that seems to match his style of play. Like, how does that dude not get a nickname?
I have to be honest. Every single person, obviously I have a friend, his last name is Gordon, but every Gordon, they all love the Flash Gordon reference. Even if they've never seen the movie, it seems like that is like the automatic thing. Like, lots of Gordons have that as a reference. Flash Gordon. It's just automatic for whatever reason.
Flash Gordon.
All right, let's move on to topic number 4. And Zeb, we're going to talk about the San Francisco undefeated 40 effing Niners. What are you hanging your hat on for this game for Monday night?
Man, this
defense. I know it. You're gonna just the defense is gonna feast.
Well, I can't wait to see Cam go after
Vernon Davis.
Never mind. Damn it, I couldn't even get through it. I think that I believe that the Seahawks are gonna be really fired up for this game. And I think that it's time for the Niners to come back down to earth a little bit. I think it's going to be tough. I think I don't think there's any doubt that they're pretty much as good as advertised. But this is the kind of thing. This is that kind of game. This is that this kind of gets us back to that old rivalry a little bit. I feel like if we can make it an offensive battle, then I feel like the Seahawks have a chance to walk away with a victory. If they are able to contain Russell and force him to, like we said, he hasn't made very many mistakes this year. But I think if there's any team that can get him to make some mistakes, it's probably going to be them. If they can do that, we're in trouble. But if we can kind of play this game how we played last week against the Bucs and make it more of an offensive battle, then I think we should be able to get the better of them. So I'm hoping for lots of scoring.
I'm down for a scoring match. Ross, what about you? What are you going to hang your hat on if the Seahawks are going to come out of this game with a win?
I'm gonna hang two hats. I'm hanging one on the fact that they didn't seem world beaters last week.
Nope.
They seemed like a good team. They don't seem like elite. Like their undefeated schedule seems like partly a product of the schedule and sort of random probability. So you just end up that kind of thing. And also, and this is going to go into what Zeb said, we might be looking at a low-scoring game just by the fact that their one weakness on defense does seem to be like their rushing defense. The running game defense doesn't seem as elite, and there might be some opportunities there. And Quan Alexander is now out, one of their starting linebackers, and that's like a big loss for them. That was like their biggest or one of the biggest offseason acquisitions, and it was a huge key player in that defense. So there might be some opportunities to run the ball, shorten that game, and just fourth quarter as fast as we can and let Russell Wilson have to do 2 or 3 game-winning drives. Hopefully, maybe, kind of. That's what I'm kind of hoping the defense, because I don't think Sammy put us earlier this week. I don't think he's all that in a bag of chips, as they used to say. But yeah, I don't really have a lot of confidence that we can force a lot of interceptions there. So I mean, he likes to give them away. He loves to give the ball away. Maybe Griffin makes that interception in the 24th game. Yeah. I don't know. I'm looking at a running game, shorten the game, let Russell Wilson do his stuff in the fourth quarter. I'm looking at that kind of game.
Yeah, I think this is something that even the most objective Seahawks fans are going to say, like, yeah, they're 8-0, and they've beaten the teams that are on their schedule, and they have impressive wins. Why should I feel like somehow Seattle, with its razor thin margin of like victory here, is all of a sudden going to like pull something out? And I think you question, like, okay, offense, maybe, yeah, there's a huge advantage on the quarterback side versus Garoppolo. Wide receivers, maybe say it's a push, give them the advantage because their running game's a little bit better than ours, so you have to maybe give them a slight edge on offense. But on defense, you look at that team and it's like, they've got playmakers, on the defensive line and their secondary. We don't have that. So I'm not sure what you really hang your hat on, other than say, like, the biggest difference maker that the Seahawks have is Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson. And a lot of times that's been enough this year. The Seahawks and the Niners have played 6 common opponents. Both teams are 6-0. The difference is the Seahawks are winning their games on an average of like 3.5 points, whereas the Niners are winning those games by an average of 12, 15 points. So the Niners are putting teams away and not letting them come back because they've got a better defense, where Seattle's like, well, we're just going to go back and forth and just hope that Russell gets the ball last, and that's going to be it all. I think this is going to be a really interesting game because both teams are going to be fired up. And if you've been paying attention to Richard Sherman has this entire season has been telling every single media person that will listen to him that he wants them to continue to say that they were going to be a bad team, that they were going to be like the 3rd or 4th seed in the NFC. And he's playing that chip on his shoulder, which he does really well. And it's going to be hard when, if you can make the front runner seem like the underdog, maybe that's the edge that's going to help them perform better. I don't know I don't know what this game is going to look like. I'm probably not going to predict a Seahawks win in it. Not saying that the Niners and Seahawks, the gap between them is huge, but there's definitely a lot of things that, because this team is really imperfect, I'm not going to say it's like going to be a blowout, but I would definitely give the edge to the Niners looking at this game. I'm not really sure what to hang my hat on here.
If the Seahawks want to make a run at the playoffs this year, and they want to put themselves in the best position possible, then beating the 49ers twice is going to be the easiest way to close that gap. So I think that I believe that Pete Carroll has probably expressed to the team how important it is to get a win against this team in particular. But man, would I feel so much better about this if Mr. Sherman was still wearing blue and green.
Yeah, I miss Sherman, even though he's crazy.
Oh, he's crazy. I love him.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I kind of feel like all three of us are in kind of like a pretty somber agreement that this is not going to be an easy game by any stretch. And it's not to say just because they're undefeated. I think that they have shown themselves to be a very, very good team. The level of that good team, I would definitely say, is open for questioning based upon the fact that they've only played two teams that have had winning records this year. And while they've beaten both of those teams, and one of those teams they beat quite soundly, I don't know if that necessarily means that you're automatically a great team. Just like I wouldn't say that the Patriots so far are a great team, because the best team that they've faced so far they lost to, and they lost in pretty strong fashion in that game against the Ravens. So you don't really know what a team is until they face different competition, and the Niners play a very similar schedule to Seattle, and obviously with these two games coming up that they still have to play against them, I could see the Seahawks still making the playoffs by losing this game and maybe winning the game in Seattle. But then it definitely becomes a lot more difficult because the gap between Seattle and the teams behind them, it becomes even more of a concern because they need to rack up more wins, because the wild card I feel is going to be super competitive this year.
Yeah, especially in the NFC.
Yeah, because the AFC is just a garbage conference.
Yeah, I think 9-0 and 7-3 doesn't look nearly as good as 8-1 and 8-2, right? Or whatever it would end up being at this point.
Yeah, I mean, if the Seahawks do come out and pull out a win, it'll be a signature win for the year, and I think that will change the entire outlook from a lot of fans. But I don't know if we've seen that game from the Seahawks yet this year. I don't think they have had that signature win.
No, probably not.
And to the same point, I would argue that the Niners haven't had a signature win either.
I mean, they dropped a 50 burger on the Panthers.
Yeah, but I mean, do you think that the Panthers are going to be a playoff team at the end of the year?
I think they're a bit of a long shot, but they're looking better than I thought they would. But yeah, no, you're right. I mean, it's starting to feel that big again. That Seahawks 49ers is starting to feel big again. That's at least that's pretty cool. So
I am excited the fact that it's going to be a big Monday night game. I think that will be fun.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
this one was.
Oh, go ahead.
I wish this one was in Seattle.
Yeah, the last game of the year is Niners in Seattle, so this one it's going to be tough. But that's kind of the way the schedule always seems to work out. Seattle always has like their division games like backloaded into the last like 6 games of the year.
Yeah.
This one's 7, but yeah.
Which I thought was how they were doing everybody on purpose. Which like because of a problem a few years ago, quite a few. But with so many meaningless games. But then so many other teams like in the AFC though, like they've had already like 6 out of their 8 conference games or whatever. Division games.
We've already wrapped up our AFC schedule, so we don't play another AFC team until potentially the Super Bowl. So yeah, it's a really weird schedule this year for sure from a Seattle.
Well, remember they changed how they made the schedule this year. They were trying some new thing out that was supposed to make everything more even, and I think it kind of made it a little more wonky.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that San Francisco has only played 2 games against teams that have winning records, halfway through the season, I think that means that, again, you don't know what you've got until until the end of the year is going to come, and we'll see what happens with this game on Monday.
Right.
Let's get some predictions out there. So, Zeb, you were feeling so strong and tough, and I want to know, what's your final score for the Seahawks at Niners game?
34-31 Seahawks.
Okay.
I'm going to go 28-27 with the mystery winner.
Okay. Well, mystery winner.
There.
I think it's the Seahawks, but that's because I've slightly biased.
Yeah. A little bit.
Would not because we went the other way.
I'm thinking more confident about the offensive line, so maybe the defense isn't going to be that huge of a problem for Seattle. But I'm going to say it's going to be a little bit lower scoring of a game, and I'm going to give the edge to the Niners. I'm going to say 27-21 San Francisco. They do cover. It's a 6-point spread.
Le cose vanno da male a peggio.
Yeah. All right. Zeb, I want to know, who's going to have the last laugh? Is it going to be Wilson or is it going to be Sherman?
My man Russell.
Ross, what about you?
100% agree.
I think that Russell is not going to pull an Aaron Rodgers and Green Bay Packers where they just don't throw to the left side of the field. We saw them challenge them. We saw them go after, one of their strongest players. I don't see Seattle doing that. I do think Russell's going to get the better of Sherman, but I think that, maybe our defense just won't be able to hold up. But I am going to give the last laugh to Russell Wilson.
Good.
This is a random prediction, so this is no lead for you guys. Zed, what is the most unlikely thing to happen in this game?
Maybe a live crucifixion on the 50-yard line.
Wow, that's really unexpected.
Yeah, I don't see that happening at all.
That's kind of gone out of fashion, hasn't it?
Yeah, they don't really do those anymore.
How about like a black cat just like running across the field?
Wouldn't happen. Not in this league.
There's no cats in football.
How about Richard Sherman gets what should be an easy pick six, but he's turned around and he returns it the wrong way for a safety.
Ooh.
That would be awesome.
I'm rooting for that.
Here's the most unlikely thing to happen. Russell Wilson has an interception off of a tip. Richard Sherman catches it, but Russell Wilson strips the ball from Sherman and gets the ball back. That's the most unlikely thing to happen.
He does a Steve Largent type deal.
Yeah, He doesn't maim Richard Sherman. He just gets that ball back.
Okay.
What
did he maim him?
Well, Steve Largent basically just in that play, the one that you're talking about, where he recovers the ball on the interception. He just blew up that guy like Cam Chancellor, right?
He ended that dude. Yeah.
I don't see Russell Wilson going for that. He's going to just get the ball back and say no, this is mine.
If Sherm gets a pick, wouldn't you just love to see DK just rock him?
Yeah. I mean, I think that'll be a fun matchup, and it'll be interesting to see because we've known forever you can't throw a go ball against Richard Sherman. He's just too smart, too long, even though he doesn't have the
What
speed.
if you can if it's DK Metcalf?
That's what I was gonna go with. I think that would be really interesting. You know what? We know you're really good, but are you this good? We shall see.
Oh my God, I would love to see that. I think just to 50 yards, and Russell Wilson just gets the perfect arc on it, and it's DK Metcalf with the super height and the super length. So he just
the thing that I could see happening is just like that 53-yard touchdown that DK has. The Sherman, when he played in Seattle, he never really followed. He played zone. So if there's a crossing route, Sherman's going to give up a crossing route because that's a really tough play to have because you got to stay in front, and he doesn't have top end speed. That's a play that I could see Tyler Lockett or DK taking advantage of if Sherm doesn't have safety coverage over the top. So
yeah.
Who's going to have the bigger wide receiver day there, Zeb? Is it going to be Lockett, Metcalf, or are you going to pick the Seahawks field?
My dude Lockett is out of his mind this season.
Yeah.
I don't see that changing this week.
Ross, who you got?
Hollister.
Called it.
Technically, he's a tight end, but I understand. I'm with Zeb. I think Lockett has had an amazing year. I'd love to see him continue this trend.
Did anybody see Lockett becoming one of the best wide receivers in the league?
I mean, we talked about that 2 years ago when he re-signed him. We're like, wow, like they signed him for that long, for that much. Okay.
I think it's
I actually remember like pointing out the fact that kickoffs were being sort of phased out.
And we were like, oh, this is a total bust. What are we doing here? But I don't think anyone did, for sure.
I crazy.
I don't remember like hating it, but I don't remember.
I
still saw it as like a
questionable for sure.
I did not see him replacing Doug Baldwin this effectively.
No.
I didn't think he could be the replacement. I thought like he would still be him, and they needed to find somebody else to be Doug. But now he's sort of Doug plus Lockett. Right. He's everybody.
Right.
Nope. I did not see that.
And I think the advantage of having another guy like DK Metcalf has opened it up, so he's not just getting blanketed. But yeah, Zeb, who's going to have the bigger rookie showing, DK Metcalf or Joey Bosa?
Oh man, see, this is the game where either Seahawks fans learn to hate that Bosa fellow, or the 49ers fans learn to hate DK Metcalf. So,
I love it.
I'm going to go ahead and side with my boy, DK Metcalf.
Can't I just say yes?
I mean, you could really, like, it could go both ways very easily.
I don't see why Bosa can't just go off and get 2 sacks, including a strip sack on Wilson at some point. But then like we come back still anyways, and we throw the game-winning touchdown on yard to Metcalf and over Sherman, and everybody learns to hate everybody.
I think
it's like Kumbaya. What happened? What if you play the Kumbaya record backwards on record player?
That's really
murder, kill.
There we go. That's what we're looking at.
All right. So definitive answer from Ross is yes.
Yes.
I'm going to say that Joey Bosa is going to have a little bit better of a game.
This is Nick Bosa, not Joey Bosa.
Oh, okay. See,
yeah, Nick Bosa. It's Joey's racist little brother.
Okay. So the racist younger brother, I think he's going to have a little bit better of a day because I think he will find a more favorable matchup against our offensive line because he seems to have been doing really well this year. So maybe this is some juju to like kind of knock him off if I give him some cred here. And the final prediction, Zeb, are the Seahawks going to regret losing wide receiver Gary Jennings? Yes or no?
No.
Ross?
I'm going to agree with that and say no.
I'm going to have to also say no. I'm not really sure. I mean, I'm kind of surprised that he made the roster considering like how poorly he played throughout the preseason, but maybe he showed something in camp, but
honestly, like what they signed him to the 53-man roster based on what? Like that dude like did absolutely nothing in the preseason. It hasn't been active.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you know what? Joke's on him. He got picked up by the Dolphins of all.
Hey, he might blow up in Miami like James McKnight. Or Lamar Smith. Wasn't it Lamar Smith went there too?
Yeah. James McKnight was a cool name.
I liked him.
Sounds like an R&B singer, like Brian McKnight.
And then he went to Miami. Yeah. That sucked.
But, you know, like, people keep saying, poor him when he's going to Miami. But, you know, at the end of the day, dollars matter. And going from, you know, he's going to get paid. So,
hey, you know what, though? Respect to Miami Dolphins. Like, we everybody's been talking all year about them tanking. But those guys are actually playing their hearts out. So, respect to them.
Yeah, it took them facing an also terrible team in the New York Jets to get their first win. So congrats to them. Cincy is the only winless team in the league right now.
Yeah, I don't know. Coaches, players can't tank, right? You like only the front office. The coaches
only the owner in the front office can.
Yeah, because if you're a player, you're basically just auditioning for your next gig, aren't you?
Yeah, you're hoping you have enough value to someone else.
Who's playing QB in Cincinnati now? They bringing back Kitna?
Finley, something like
rookie,
that.
Right?
Chuck Finley?
Yeah.
Something like Finley, yeah. That dude. So you're going to be benching Boyd, benching...
Dude, Dalton and Flacco both got, like, reprimand benchings. Yeah. And then they put Flacco on an IR.
It wasn't even, like, Dalton's fault. I mean, it's not like he's amazing. Like, the dude, like, the last game before he got bunched at, like, 300 yards passing and a touchdown, no interceptions. Like,
yeah.
I don't think that's what the problem
I
is,
think
guys.
you're playing for the future at that point. That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's our show, gentlemen. Do you have any shout-outs?
Shout out in a bad way to the creator of the whole daylight savings time thing, because now it's over, and now I have to watch games at 3 a.m. and 6 a.m. instead of 2 and 5. And although it doesn't sound like a big difference, somehow it really is.
It is.
I hate watching games that start at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I don't know. Again, it's just an hour, but it's so much harder.
I feel
right.
you, Russ. I feel you. So,
shout out to Poe Dameron.
Nice.
I heard that guy pilot.
He's a hell of a pilot.
I'm going to give a shout out to the Mandalorian. He's going to come visit on Tuesday after the Seahawks game. So maybe I'll be wrong and we'll celebrate a win and the Mandalorian on back-to-back.
I love Boba Fett.
Not Boba Fett, just the Mandalorian.
Hey, Boba.
What do you mean?
Yeah. But we are the Seahawks Hawkscast podcast, brought to you by the Hawkscast Forum. Check us out on Twitter at Seahawks Podcast and Seahawks Forum. Go to hawkscast.com. Got a lot of really fun topics that we're talking about right now, so definitely come and join us. I am Sam. With me, as always, is Zeb and Ross. And gentlemen, go Hawks.
Go Hawks. Do it.